Are you sick of government lackeys who say you didn't build that? Are you tired of elitists who think you need a government permission slip for everything? Everything you do is an A to B conversation, and the government should see their way out of it. Create true free markets by adopting the BIPCOT No Government License. The BIPCOT No Gov license allows use or modification of any product, service, or software except by governments or government agents. Go to bipcot.org. That's Bravo, India, Papa, Charlie, Oscar, Tango.org.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Peaceful Anarchism on the Voluntary Virtues Network on theseedsofliberty.com and theconsciousresistance.com. So today we have back on the show Nick Hazelton coming in from Oregon. He is the Anarcho-Yackalist, the host of the Anarcho-Yackalist podcast. You can find that on Facebook as Anarcho-Yackalist Podcast, or you can find him on Twitter under Nick Hazelton, under Instagram, on Instagram under Nick Hazy, and on Snapchat under Nickly Pickly. You got fun there. And his website is an-yak.com, an-yak.com. And we're going to have a fun episode today, just talk about a interesting debate he had with Todd Lewis, who calls himself a Christian distributist. I debated him once, and then he was interested in debating Nick, so Nick had an episode with him, and they talked about some fascinating things. So we're gonna kind of go over those topics because I think they are interesting topics to get into and see what we can come with it. So yeah, some of the topics he discussed in the debate were the idea of self-ownership being impossible, that we can't own ourselves because we own. Like we own chairs, but how can you own a chair like you own your bodies? Yeah. And then abortion is murder, and then animal rights and morality. Can you apply morality to animals? So, Nick, thanks a lot for coming back on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, and thank you for dealing with all of my scheduling issues. I think we've scheduled to do this at least 3 times, and throughout the summer, and then I think we finally locked down a date in October here today. A couple months ago, and I almost missed it again. So I apologize, but thank you for working through that with me.
No problem. I know you're a busy yak farmer, and a lot of people waiting for their yak meat. And I don't know, do you sell yak dairy also, yak milk?
I don't, not at the moment. I'd like to, but it's a very lengty process. You have to tame a yak, and that takes a few years.
Ah, that's
so
right.
It'll be a while.
You got to stand still. Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
that makes sense. All right. So can you get into a little bit of background with your debate, and what were your initial thoughts of it after you did it? How did you feel about it?
It was interesting. I kind of expected to have a little bit more disagreement with him, but I kind of got into it and I realized that I didn't know exactly what he was talking about, and mostly what I could do is just say, well, I don't know. I'll have to get back to you, Todd. On some of them, I didn't fully understand. I didn't study. I wasn't studied up on what he said, but a lot of it, I guess I would agree. From what I remember, I agreed with a lot of what he had said, which puts me at odds with a lot of anarcho-capitalists and libertarians. But I thought it was very interesting. It was a very interesting talk. And we covered a lot of stuff. We kind of just breezed through, and it was a little bit fast. That would be my only thing, is I don't think that it was that great of a debate because of how fast we went, and the lack of opposition he had from me. Was it's just too bad, but it was interesting, and I thought he raised a lot of great points, and I thought that he did make a lot of great points.
Yeah, I remember with my debate also that he would cite specific people, like specific scholars, specific philosophers, and say, I agree with this one, but then this one came along and contradicted him, and then he discovered this new thing, and then, so he was basically rattling off, I don't know, books and what other people said, and to me, that's not really a debate. It's like he's a book in a sense, and he's just rattling off ideas, and I'm like, well, okay, that's what other people said. I'm really interested in what you have to say and what you think about all this. And he did Too much of that. I guess you can say that's like an appeal to authority. You know, it's like we revere these people, these authors, and these thinkers and scholars, and so we assume that everything they say is correct. But that's not true at all. That's not the case. I don't agree with a lot of with everything that Stefan Molyneux says. I don't agree with everything that Walter Block says. I don't agree with everything that Tom would say. Some things I do. You pick and choose, and so. And I think there was too much of that with my debate. And I think you did the same thing in your debate. And I think, it's just I don't know. I don't like how that came across. It's like he didn't really want to talk to you about principles. He wanted to talk to you. What would this guy say? What this guy? And you're like, I don't know what he said because I didn't read that book.
Right. Yeah, I've never read Murray Rothbard, so I can't say that I agree with him, right? From what I've heard, he makes a lot of sense, but I've never really read his exact statement. So yeah, it was kind of difficult there when and I see where he comes from. If you're going to go after a philosophy, go after the people who kind of founded it, I guess. But from what I got from a lot of people was like, yeah, Murray Rothbard said that one thing about abortion or whatever. I don't know what exactly this was, right? But I don't agree with that. And many anarcho-capitalists would say that, right? That's why I got that from a lot of people. It's like, yeah, that guy said something stupid, but that was the one thing he said that was stupid. And nobody's perfect, right? So it doesn't dismiss the whole philosophy. It just dismisses that one guy's point. And I think he's right. I think that was a good point that a lot of people brought up afterwards is that, yeah, Todd went after these thinkers, these anarcho-capitalists, libertarian, Austrian economic thinkers, but that doesn't dismiss the entire philosophy of anarcho-capitalism or libertarianism.
Yeah, and I think it's actually a good thing that you find, or that a person finds some fault or some disagreement with a thinker, because that tells me that the person is not just blindly believing what another scholar writes and says just because they wrote it and said it, right? You're actually seriously thinking about what they're saying, which is a good thing, right? I would be afraid of people who would say, Stefan Molyneux can do no wrong, can say no wrong. Larkin Rose can say no wrong. That's idolatry. That's idol worship. That's the appeal to authority, and that's a no-no. that's the antithesis of being a free thinker, being an independent thinker, and one of the memes that my friend Jim Limber Davis made, which is a really awesome meme. He said that great liberty leaders create more leaders rather than followers, which I think is really awesome. We want people. We're not trying to convey these principles so that in such a complex and intricate way that they have to refer to our writing or our podcasts to explain it to people. You want people to understand it themselves so that they can explain it to other people, right? You want them to embody the principles, and so that's my approach. And the way I write, I try to make it very clear and understandable, and with as little jargon as possible. And if I do use jargon, to explain myself, clearly explain your terms. That's one of the very basic. Very, very basic foundations. When I talk to anybody, explain your terms. What do you mean by capitalism? What do you mean by taxation? What do you mean by, exploitation or wage slavery? What do you mean by these things? It's very important to explain topics, right? What do you think?
Absolutely, I agree. I completely agree. That's one thing that I really like about a lot of people that I see in the anarcho-capitalist and libertarian community. Maybe not so much in the minarchist community, where we have people like Gary Johnson and other people in the Libertarian Party who are really looked to and kind of put up on a pedestal, I think. But generally, most of the time, I think that the libertarian anarchists are pretty good at recognizing, hey, that person said some great stuff, but I kind of disagree with them. And a great person that pops into my head is Ben Stone. He the bad Quaker. I think he embodied exactly what you're talking about. So I really like that. And of course, defining terms, that's the first step in every debate, right? We can't argue, that taxation is theft if somebody for some reason defines taxation as voluntarily giving your money to an organization
Right.
to help out, right? Because we have a vastly different definition of taxation. So we're not the words are just kind of a brief, at least some terms can be there are ways to describe like a statement in just one word, right? So taxation would, I forget what I don't have a definition right off the top of my head, but so this is a bad example. But you kind of get what I mean. It's the map is not the territory. So taxation doesn't necessarily mean there's words that have multiple meanings, and I'm just failing to come up with an example off the top of my head here. But so
an
defining
example
terms is important.
An example of why taxation is theft, you mean?
No, I mean why defining your terms is important, and that taxation means a certain amount of work. Like it means a statement here, but we just shorten it down to taxation because it's easy.
Well, it's a euphemism. It's a political euphemism, just like quantitative easing, the war on terror, the war on drugs, right? Just like all these things, the welfare state, these are political euphemisms meant to, basically cloak and enshroud these really, horrific things that we do. It's, you got to call it what it is. It's not, it's not getting pulled over by a police officer. It's getting a death threat, right? It's not getting arrested. It's getting kidnapped, right? We're not paying our taxes. Our currency is being stolen from. It's not the war on drugs. It's a war on addicted people, right? So it's very important to call things by their proper names, right? As Confucius says, and as Mark Stevens said, it's not better than saying it's the government. A government fundamentally doesn't exist. It's just people with guns forcing you to pay them, right? So you have to strip it down away from all these pleasant-sounding words that just obfuscate reality and clearly state things as they are. So let me ask you. So with the self-ownership, how do you define self-ownership? And I'll give you my definition.
Sure. I guess the way that I would. And this is a hard one, right? Because I just think it means you own yourself, right? You have personal autonomy over your body and your mind, whatever the self embodies, which, I would argue would be your body and your mind and probably just that, right? You have sole dominion over that would be self-ownership, I think.
Okay. Yeah, when I talk to people about, people I meet on the street and I kind of gently I'm talking about what I do with this podcast and the website. I ask them, do you feel that you are entitled to the fruits of your labor, that you work for? Yeah. How much of that are you entitled to, right? Most people say 100%. And I'm like, all right, so what is then taxation? If you don't receive all of it, if you feel you are entitled to 100%, then some of it is immediately taken from you or stolen. What message is that conveying? That's conveying that these bureaucrats and politicians believe that they are entitled to the fruits of your labor, that in a sense that they own part of you, right? Or some of your labor or your time and effort, right? And I think it's a little bit of a stretch to call that slavery, but it is some kind of ownership of your time. Just imagine, in a sense, we're working like 3 months out of the year for free, right, for the state. And so if you were to have full and complete ownership over your body and the fruits of your labor, because whatever, not only your body, but you're responsible for the effects of your actions, which includes working, right? And so you're, if you take that all the way, then no other person or entity or organization or state has any right or is entitled to any of that, and therefore a state cannot exist, right? So you must be an anarchist if you truly believe that self-ownership is 100%. So that's kind of a roundabout way. That's like one of the ways that I talk to people about anarchy without actually mentioning the word anarchy,
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Todd, his argument with self ownership is like, well, you can own a chair, and you can break the chair, and you can do whatever you want. You can sell it, you can give it to somebody, but you can't do the same thing with your body. You're not separate from your body. The mind and body is together. You can't sell your body, and your other part of you is over there, and And so some people, I think I remember hearing the argument one person made was like, can we voluntarily sell ourselves, our bodies? And I'm like, yeah, it's called working. You sell yourself a portion of your time and labor, and people pay you, right? And then what about servitude? Can you voluntarily be someone's slave? Now, I think that might be called BDSM. Right? Was that bondage and slave master relationship?
Yeah, whatever it is.
Right? But even that is not fully being a slave, because you can always opt out, right? You have a safe word. So even that, so the idea is you can't voluntarily be a slave, basically, against your will. Just like a woman cannot voluntarily be raped. We can't voluntarily be mugged or robbed from, right? If you're giving your money to somebody, it's charity. But a woman gives her body to a man, it's called sex, right? So you can't voluntarily be a slave. It's an involuntary act to be a slave.
I think that it's an interesting idea, because I agree with you. By definition, right, slavery and rape are not consensual, right? But it's interesting that whether you can give like partial ownership or ownership of your body to somebody else. And I kind of think that it's counterintuitive to give up quote unquote ownership, right? Because just by practice, I mean, you own your mind, right? Nobody can really. You can kind of manipulate that, I guess, through words and other things, but it's very difficult, and right, and you have the final say in pretty much everything you do, right? So by default, you do own yourself. So I think it's an interesting idea whether you can give that up in like a relationship, or however you can do that. I'm not sure if you can really give up ownership, because I think that's kind of just something you have by default. But I mean, you can obviously, you can put yourself into a situation where you voluntarily, I guess, I don't know if there's a better term, to be a slave, right? You can put yourself in that situation, and I don't believe that you or I should have anything to do with that, right? If somebody else decides to do that, that's not our business. That's not where, that's their decision. It's what they get to decide to do with their own self-ownership, right?
Yeah. Go ahead. Are you done? Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm done. You're good.
Yeah, but then I think that the slave would be the wrong word. Like if a woman, renounces worldly pleasures and devotes herself to the church, she's called a nun, right? If a man renounces worldly pleasures and devotes himself to, say, Buddhism, he becomes a monk. You don't really call him a slave. A slave is really an involuntary thing. Person is taken and coerced and forced to do things against his will, right? So I guess it's just semantics.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
But the idea of what we mean, I think we can tell the difference between what we mean by voluntarily enslaving yourself to somebody and not, right? There's a clear difference, and I don't think, and it'd be nice, maybe we should come up with a new word to describe it, but it's just
well here I have an interesting thought experiment for you. When does a child gain full self-ownership?
That's a great interesting question. That's just what me and my dad have talked about for a long time. Since I started kind of pushing for my own independence. He's like, well,
right.
Like, and he would make the argument, well, you have to do what I say because you haven't fully homesteaded your body.
Oh,
right?
really? He uses those words?
He did. He said you haven't fully homesteaded yourself. You can't rely on yourself. So I
Okay.
think I get to tell you what to do. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Of course, I'm like, no way, you don't. I could do whatever I want, and the only reason why I'm doing what you want is because you do feed me, which makes sense, right? I have to. It's a bargaining chip being fed and
It's a nice
having
thing.
a house.
It's a nice thing.
Sure, right? And so I don't know. Like, it's a really good question, and like 18 is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so many people that I know that could be and have been self-reliant before the age of 18. And I certainly think that children deserve more freedom than they're given by the state and their parents before the age of 18.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know exactly, but I would say it's probably not before 12. People don't really develop great reasoning skills for a while. And I would say that, I know a lot of people, even at age 18, that probably aren't suited to live on their own. So I don't know. I don't know exactly what that is. But I guess, for certain, I think that if you are able to prove that you can live on your own, then certainly I think you have. But I do think that children deserve more freedom than I think a lot of people believe.
So one possibility is it's different for different people, right? Different people have different maturity levels and different knowledge and different abilities, different handicaps, right, or strengths. So my friend Jim Limber Davis, he wrote books Liberty Defined and Morality Defined, and he takes an interesting perspective on this because I posted a lot about this, about peaceful parenting and self-ownership with kids, and his contention, and he's also a parent of like an 8-year-old, and he's a very peaceful guy, just like me. So he's me and him agree on a lot of things. But one thing with this self-ownership in children, he says that when children are born, they are the complete property of the parents. Now he's like that might seem like it would recoil, like it may seem harsh to a lot of libertarians or anarchists to hear that, but he says as the child gets older and older and older, they slowly claim more and more ownership over themselves, and so eventually they become fully independent. So in that sense, they own their children. But I still think it's a strange thing to say I own my child. I wouldn't call it like that. And the way that I describe that with my kids is I try to treat them as if they already do own themselves. It's like, of course, as infants and toddlers, they don't know the effects of their actions, they don't know what they're doing, they're largely experimenting with the world, and so you make decisions, should they experiment with this, should they experiment with that, and of course you don't let them experiment walking off a cliff, and you don't let them experiment walking in a highway. So you make decisions as to what you think is appropriate for them to experiment with, and they make their own mistakes and they learn, and that's how they become independent and self-reliant, right? And I think my kids are pretty well, when we go out in public, they are pretty confident and well-spoken, and they speak to adults like without any trepidation. They don't speak as if the adults are the authority figures at all. They don't really recognize authority figures much, which is wonderful. And so when they speak to parents of other children, the parents, when they speak to the parents, they're completely fine. But the children of those parents don't necessarily speak to me at all, so a lot of them do understand that parents or adults are authority figures. You don't just speak to them. It's like I don't know, maybe it's like the speak when spoken to type thing,
Sure.
And that's sad. It's very tragic. So that's kind of the way my approach is. I understand that there's an automatic power differential between parent and child when they're born. We're bigger, older, stronger, and so as much as possible, I try to nullify that and give them the freedom to make their own mistakes. And I mean, it's difficult because I'm not your father, but maybe if I was, I would be a little more free and relaxed. And I can see, you're a capable guy, and so if you need my help, I'll give you my help if I can help you. But if you can do things on your own, it's awesome. And the other thing is, if you didn't have to spend all of those years learning what someone else thought was important, where would you be today? Right? How self-reliant would you be by now if you didn't have to waste time learning, or I should say memorizing, things that were useless to you? I think that's the real question. All the wasted time, and I think my kids, because, with the homeschooling and the unschooling, we are giving them the opportunity to do things that they enjoy. I think they will be, I completely see them, having a business and earning an income very quickly. And that's exciting.
Sure.
That's exciting for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that you and I completely agree on that point. I think that's exactly what a parent should be doing, right? I don't think it's as much as of an ownership role over a child, right? I think it's more of a caretaking role where
or guardian.
you're you're providing for them until they can't, and your job is to work yourself out of a job. Your job is to get this person to be self-reliant, and it's a tricky situation because there's no other kind of relationship, and I'm not sure that you can treat it as the same as your and my relationship, right? You and I have to completely respect our decisions, right? That's we work on a voluntary interaction basis, and that's not like children. And of course, that doesn't mean that you can then manipulate that and abuse that and take ownership of this child as weaker person, right? This doesn't mean that you're allowed to aggress on them, right? But it does mean that it's complicated, right? And there are situations where you do have to violate the consent. Like your kid just wants to go run out in the woods for a few days on their own. They just get mad at you because you said something, and they're like, "I'm running away," right? You can't really let them do that because of what would happen. They'll get lost. They'll get eaten by a bear or something. So there's situations like that, but and it's probably complicated. I'm not a parent, right? I'm pretty young, and I hope not to be a parent for a little while longer. But it's I don't know exactly. It's a complicated situation that I don't think I figured it out, but I definitely think that I think that there are ways that you can be pretty smart about it. I think that it's kind of common sense, at least to me, that you should just let these kids, at least to a degree, make their own decisions. Like you're saying, let them fail, let them figure it out. You don't need to be there unless they're really going to cause themselves serious harm, right? And and you're there as a helper mostly.
So talking about letting your kids walking out into the woods, you just reminded me of something, because my daughter, she's very fiercely emotional, and her emotional state is very strong. Like my wife. And so if you anger her, she will say, she has said, I think she started this maybe a couple of months ago, where she says, I'm going to go to another house and another family, and I'm leaving you. Bye. And so, as a parent, you're like, yeah, she's just joking. Nobody believes you when your kid says that, right? And then my son, who's 6 years old, he's 2 years older than her. She's 4. He is very scared. He believes her completely, and he's down on his knees, crying, begging, saying, "No, Serena, please don't leave. I'm going to give you all my toys. I'll play with you. Please don't leave. I'll do anything you want. What do you want me to do?" And so, even then, when he does that, she still doesn't budge. She's like, "No, I'm leaving." and so this happened one time during the summer, and my wife's like, "Do something, Danilo." So I said, okay, calm down. Okay, what's going on? And then she's like, she wants to leave. I'm like, where are you gonna go? I'm gonna go to the other house. I'm like, all right, just let her go. Let's see what happens. So he got out of the way, and she was leaving, and she walked across the street. We live in a cul-de-sac development, and she walked across the street, and then she went, so I was following her, my son was following me, we were all following her, and she walked went to another house, another property, walked down the driveway, walked up their stairs, walked up to the door, and knocked on the door.
Oh man.
And the only organisms that actually answered were dogs barking.
Oh.
So that was good. And then she was about to, all right, I'm going to go to the next house. But by that time, my wife was there. And, but basically what I was trying to say is I was talking to her. I'm like, why are you going to do this? We're going to miss you. What are you going to do? Where are you going to sleep? Try to reason it out with her rather than like forcefully restrain her, and try to just engage her mind and her reasoning capabilities and say, how is this going to work? What if you need food? Do they know what food you like? And, what if you need to go to ballet? How are they going to take you? We know that you like ballet, all those kind of things. So, I know that her, she has very intense emotions, and we deal with it. I try to talk to her and reason with her and, be compassionate and being a listening ear. But it's hard because my son is not like that. He's not very intense at all, in that way. He's very different. So yeah, so I thought that was interesting to share.
Yeah, definitely. And there's been situations now I think about it, I ran away and I was being young. I didn't think all the way through it. It ended up didn't bring a sweatshirt and it was very cold outside. So, and I just decided that, I don't know where to go. I'm going to go back home, and it's right. It's not fun. And, I came back and of course I was in trouble.
How old were you?
I don't know what, I bet I was like 6. It's probably happened 6? A few times.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, and, I just ran out in the field and, I was 20 yards away from home.
Yeah. So you're mad
but I was hidden.
You were mad at your parents for something?
Yeah. And I don't remember what it was or even what the punishment was afterwards.
Okay.
But, but I mean, it doesn't have to be a punishment, but you kind of know that, that wasn't really a situation that my parents had to intervene, and they didn't. Right? They're like, yeah, no, he'll be back, right? That's exactly what happened. So yeah, no, that makes sense now that I think about it. Maybe that's not a situation, but I think that it's usually pretty clear. I think what you did is great, right? Like you don't have to grab a kid and bring her back in and say, and then because what would you do then? You would explain to her, no, you can't do that because of this and this and this. Instead, just let her do it.
Instead, let her do it, yeah, and then talk to her as she's doing it. And just, as much as possible, try to reason. So that's maybe it would be different if we did live out in a field. We didn't have so many people around us that if she's screaming that people would think we're beating her. But because she does have a really loud voice. I'm telling you, this 4-year-old, she's tiny, but she has a loud voice. So, and I've been having to tell her multiple times, when she screams for very little things, I don't know, Marcus takes a toy, she screams loud, ear-piercing scream like she's being attacked by somebody, like somebody's beating her up, that kind of scream. I'm like, you can't scream like that. People call the police. They call the road pirates. Don't do that. They're gonna take you away. You're not gonna see anybody again. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's, and from what I'm getting to the point where I'm able to reflect on my parenting and how I was parented, and now I'm an adult, I guess. I forget that. I'm seen as an adult by the state and most people now. But I look back and I think about how was I parented, and I still live with my parents, right? I'm still and I still have my obligations, household obligations that I've always had, right? I have my chores, and I think back and now I'm making a conscious decision to be more grateful for what I have and that they let me live here and what they've done for me, right? Because truly my parents have been one of the greatest blessings I have. They've made my life difficult in some ways, but overall, right, I think that they've been some of my greatest supporters. But I think about it like my parents are always like, you got to do these certain things, and they get so mad when I forget about them, right? They give me 3 things, and just the way my mind works, I'm not good at remembering it. And so they yell at me, hey, Nick, you got to do this. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. And there's other things like that, right? They say you have to do these things, and they get mad. Why don't you do this? And, I go back through, and I'm like, well, you've been telling this to me for 17, 18 years. Why haven't I gotten it by now? And why am I only getting it just now? I think it's because, right, you haven't really respected my decision-making skills, right? You tell me you have to do this, and nobody's like, oh, I love authority, right? I'm going to do that, right? Nobody really starts out like that. At least most people. It seems like most kids start out being pretty defiant,
right?
Like they're going to put up a fit because you're making them do something they don't want to do,
right.
And you know what you do from there is you punish them when they don't do what you want to do. So the kid has this negative reaction to hearing you tell them, you know, do this. And you can see this in a lot of people. I can see this in my sister. She's very she's actually even more like, I guess, sassy than I am. You know, you tell her to do something and she's like, no way, I'm not doing it. She gets mad, right? And so, like, you know, you put her in timeout so many times when she was 12. Why didn't that work?
Right.
I don't know. It just doesn't work, right? So what I found is or at least in my experience, it seems to me that the best way to handle those things is say, like, hey, I'd like you to help out because you know, we all live in this house. Like, my mom works all day. She's full-time job, and at some points in my life, my dad's had a full-time job, right? They can't be there the whole time, so they need help. You know, and say that, you know, hey, I need some help, and I'd really appreciate it if you do that because I'm out earning a paycheck so that you can eat and live in this house, right? And so I'm expecting that you put up, you know, part of an end of this bargain, right? And say that, you know, I would like you to wash the dishes for me. Could you do that? And if I say no, then I guess I don't know exactly. I'll let you throw in there, but it doesn't seem that putting a kid in timeout or yelling at them has been effective, at least with the cases that I have observed, which aren't terrible amount, but that would be my experience. So I wonder. So that's what I would say is this doesn't work. But do you have something that does work? You know, I'm just curious. Your kids are kind of young; they're not really washing dishes, I assume.
Yeah. So that brings up another interesting topic about parenting, which is chores. Because I've interviewed a lot of parents who, you know, peaceful parents and are homeschoolers and unschoolers, and you know, sometimes they say that they don't do chores. You know, they don't necessarily ask their kids to help, and they would like their kids to help because they want to help, not because they have to help, right? And a couple of them, it says, you know, of course they don't even tell them, you know, their room, like to these parents, the child's room is their sanctuary, you know, and that's if they have however they want to have their room, that's how they have their room, you know. So you can never, according to them, you know, force them to clean their room. And yeah, I'm thinking about that now more and more, and I kind of like that, you know. I wanted that's going to be my goal, is not to come at parenting from a position of authority, like you said, and tell your kids you have to do this, but just ask, you know, as you would like a friend, like a peer, you know. You wouldn't tell your friend, clean my dishes, you know. You would ask, you know, like, you know, help me out. Let's talk while we're cleaning, or, you know, like I'm talking to my brother sometimes downstairs, and I'm making guacamole, and I'm like, yeah, can you? And he's just listening to what I'm saying, and I'm making the guacamole. I'm like, Nick, why don't you just? Oh, he's also Nick, yeah. Sure. I'm like, sure. Nick, you know, chop this onion or this tomato. And he's like, all right. So it's not like chop it now, you know. So I think that's gonna be my goal. You know, I don't like this word chores. No, I definitely don't.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that it's. You know, it has that. It definitely has that authoritarian.
Right, definitely does.
I get, what do you call that? What's that word? Tinged. I don't know. It's not tinged, but
flavor. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I guess that's just what it is. So yeah, I agree. I think that's great, and you know, that's what I would. You know, if I have kids, like that's the way I would like to do it. Right. That's because like we go back to it. Like what we've said. It's, you know. You know what I've said is I don't think it's exactly, you don't treat kids like in the same relationship as maybe your brother or your friends, because I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. But you know, your job is to make it that way, right? I think that's the goal, and you know, having an authoritarian a position over your kids isn't going to do that. You know, by all pretty much empirical standards that I can tell, you know, most people don't seem to like their parents until they're older.
Mm-hmm.
That's just been the way I've seen it. And I guess maybe it's not most, but a lot of people don't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of disturbing to me. Like, what? These are the people who brought you into this world. They've hopefully taken care of you until you were of age to take care of your own self. So what do you have this issues with them? And like, I hear this all the time. I don't know if it's 50% or less or more, but it seems that there are a lot of people who just have issues with their parents. And I wonder, what's the deal here? Is it the kid? Like, because they're just a brat, they're just born that way. The parents couldn't find a way to correct or change that behavior. Or is it because these parents did something to this child that they didn't appreciate? And from what I can tell, it typically is the latter.
Right. And that brings to mind another idea that I just thought of, which is, when you said that your parents, they say, I bring in the paycheck, and so I expect you to do certain things, right? And the way I look at it is that, we chose to be parents, but our children did not choose to be our children, right? It's completely accidental, completely involuntary, you can say. Whereas being parents is most of the time completely a voluntary decision, right? And so in that case, it's what you would call an acquired obligation, right? So you can't have children because you want slaves, because they didn't choose to be in that position, right? You made the choice. So therefore, you have an acquired obligation to these children to take care of them, feed them, nourish them, and clothe them and house them until they can take care of themselves, right? And after that, they don't owe you anything. Like this is actually another topic that's very interesting. I brought up with the other mothers in my group, which is, do your kids owe you anything after they leave the house, right? Because my mother asked me this a few weeks ago, and the reason she asked me this because some football player made makes millions of dollars a year, and then the mother makes a public statement saying, "Well, I'm your mother, so I deserve half of it." And that brings to light an interesting idea, an interesting concept, which is, do we owe our parents until our death, right, for taking care of us and giving us life and nourishing us and all that? And I don't think we do. I think that because our children did not choose to be our children, we are the ones with the acquired obligation, right? It's our obligation, it's our duty to take care of them. And once we have done that, there's no debt at all. No repayment needs to be done. Everything is equal. We brought about the inequality by bringing this being into existence that is completely dependent on us, right? In the same way that Tom Woods makes an interesting analogy to explain this concept, which is, if an airplane pilot, goes up in the air with 100 passengers. And then, and then he says to one passenger that he doesn't like, "I don't like you. This plane is my property. Get off my property." It's 20,000 feet in the air, and then the libertarian was like, "Hey, it's his private property. You gotta do what he says. If he wants you off his property, you gotta get off his property." But again, it's the case of an acquired obligation, right? You're putting the passengers, in a state of vulnerability. By them buying the ticket and then getting on your aircraft. Now it's your duty to take them. You put them in a vulnerable situation and get them safely to where they're going, right? So I find that to be analogous. Those two things. What do you think?
I completely agree. I think that's exactly how you should treat it. So I guess I don't have anything else to add to that. I think that's just it.
Yeah,
I agree.
All right, so we think we hashed that to death. So let's see. We have the abortion, but I think it's more interesting the animal rights and morality. So where do you stand on that? What do you think about animal rights, given the fact that you're a yak farmer?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had some run-ins with, I guess, maybe I wouldn't call them activists, but people who promote animal rights. Actually, two of my close romantic relationships have been with people who, at least one of them was pretty much in opposition to farming, and that that led to a strain, right? Because I'm totally opposed to veganism, and that gave me an opportunity to study it, I guess. So that's why I brought that up. Because I had these close relationships, and I wanted to find out, why do these people believe that? And this is totally at odds with what I believe. This is, my livelihood is, what do you call that? Putting animals into my servitude, right? Mm-hmm. These pigs are pretty much my slaves. I eventually harvest them, and I'm going to do pretty much everything in my power to make sure that happens. Mm-hmm. So I'm, of course, opposed to that. Otherwise, I'd be a terrible hypocrite. Mm-hmm. But from what I can understand, the most common, belief is that sentient beings should be given the same amount of rights. And in my opinion, I'd say that, well, I disagree. I think that rational beings should be given the same amount of rights. And I may not have a consistent way of explaining my take on this, but it's my opinion that animals don't deserve the same guidelines that I give humans, right? I'm not going to aggress on humans, but I think that just the way nature has come about, I think that it's very natural. I think that, of course, human beings maybe don't need meat to survive, but to be a healthy human being, I do believe that you should have animal-based protein in your diet. And from what I can tell, that's something most medical and health nutrition professionals do agree with, and so that would be my take. Is I think that you should eat meat because it's healthy for you, and I don't think animals deserve the same rights as people because I don't think that they're rational, and I just don't see any reason why just because they're sentient they should. That would be my position.
All right, so I just lost all my vegan anarchist subscribers. No.
You're welcome. You don't need them.
All right, so so let me state clearly before I respond. I have a lot of vegan anarchist friends, and I'm not a vegan myself. And I think for well, just talking about the idea of advancing anarchy and voluntarism and freedom, I think it's so much more important to focus on human beings than animals. I think that's the more pressing issue at the moment. Wars, imperialism, counterfeiting, all the stuff that's going on.
Sure.
I think that we have to put priorities. So that's the first thing. So that's basically why I don't really like to pick fights with vegan anarchists or anarcho-feminists or anarcho-mutualists or even anarcho-communists. I don't really like to pick fights with them because if they're anarchists, then they basically want the same thing I do, as long as they're peaceful, basically.
Sure.
Right. And so, so I don't see a reason why we should have all this infighting and just attack each other because we don't agree on every minutia of our philosophy. I just find that to be counterproductive. So that being said, I'm not a vegan, and I actually I have become more intimately understanding of. I've understood the idea of veganism more because my brother, he's 24. He just recently became vegan, maybe a few months ago, and so he's been doing extensive study into because he also listens to a lot of what I say, and you would call him a libertarian or. He's learning all this stuff as I'm writing and as I do my podcast. We get into a lot of interesting conversations. So he learns, so he understands a lot of it. And a lot of the stuff he agrees with me. And then he became a vegan, and he's definitely not the kind of vegan which is constantly trying to make meat eaters feel bad or make you feel like you're murdering animals. Which is great because he's the only vegan in the house. And so we've gotten to very interesting conversations, and as a result of being a vegan, he's also really studied the logical fallacies because when people talk to him, he likes to be very careful about how he responds, and also so that he can identify logical fallacies that other people commit when they attack his veganism. So that's really cool. So we're both like, me and him, we're both really keen on logical fallacies. That's how that's a lot of the stuff, part of the ways that I respond to people when they talk to me, about morality and economics and the state. So I use them a lot. But yeah, one thing that when he really started getting into it, one thing that I recoiled at was the idea of associating murder with animals, right? Because the first thing is, well, how, if you're going to say killing an animal is murder, like how small of an animal are you willing to go to call a person who kills that animal a murderer? And if that's true, then every farmer is a murderer and should be treated exactly the same way as someone who murders a human being. And are you prepared to do that? Like, say that every farmer should be in prison because they murdered a cow or a goat or a sheep or a pig, And I just think that's ridiculous. You can't say that. It's completely not the case, and I think that the concept of morality is specifically associated with human beings. Very specifically with human beings. Otherwise, things just get all complicated. How is swatting a mosquito on my arm, is that murder? Like, is accidentally stepping on ants, is that murder? So it just gets ridiculous and absurd. And so so I think it's very important to, again, clearly define our terms. Murder is associated with people, right? Morality is specifically associated with people who have what you call we act, human beings act. We have purposeful action, because we are sentient, reasoning beings, right? We have a mind, and we can clearly plan for the future, right? Animals don't necessarily clearly plan. I mean, I guess you can say, birds make nests and everything, but but they don't really think about the future. Maybe that's just instinct. I don't know. Spiders build a web because of instinct, not because they're planning in the sense that we plan, when we're buying precious metals because there's going to be a boom bust cycle. The Federal Reserve's going it's going to be a recession. So that was the first major thing, and he understood where I was coming from, and he conceded that. He's like, "You're right. We cannot call that murder, and murder is a very specific, very harsh thing, and to say that somebody, when you kill an animal, you're a murderer, is to devalue the word murder, right? In the same way that when school campuses, with their PC culture and social justice warrior crap, and they call like every guy a rapist." Right? That devalues the word rape, right? Because rape is a very violent and aggressive action, right? I don't know any people who would condone or pardon rape, right? But then to turn around, the feminists turn around and say, "Well, we live in rape culture, rape all over the place." All right, come on, calm down. Let's not overuse and devalue these words. These are very specific words with very specific meanings, right? And so I think the same thing can be applied to animals. So morality for me is just applied to animals. Just applied to humans. But then at the same time, I would say that I think there is really there's like killing animals for no particular reason, and then there's killing animals, because you're a farmer or maybe because you're a hunter, right? I think there's a very big difference. Like, I remember Larkin Rose was saying this, like, it's not immoral to torture kittens, right? That's you can't assign that kind of category or that kind of label on that action. You're just being an idiot. You're just being you're just being a bad person. You're not necessarily immoral. You don't necessarily have to go to prison. You shouldn't pay anybody. Maybe if somebody owns that kitten, this is another interesting idea, which Walter Block frequently brings up, which is really awesome. Walter Block is famous for saying, if it moves, privatize it. If it doesn't move, privatize it. So privatize everything, right? including all land, all oceans, all animals, right? And if you really are an environmentalist and you care for animals, you want to protect them, then privatize them. Have ownership over them. Like, what is the reason that the bison? Is it the bison or the buffalo that almost went extinct? I keep forgetting.
Aren't they the same? I don't know the difference. I think
Yeah.
buffalo's like tamed and bison aren't. I don't know what the deal is.
All right. So one of them almost went extinct, right? When the Native Americans, hunting them down, and then they got the guns, and then from the Europeans or the people living here, and then they were better able to kill them, and so they were almost like pretty much going extinct until people basically started taking care of them like farmers, right? Animal husbandry, and then their numbers grew again, right? So having ownership over animals, I think, is one of the best ways that you can save species. And the same thing goes in Africa. You have like state protected lands or something, but then you have the illegal poachers, and they go in there, and so basically the state doesn't prevent anything. If people want to go in there and kill these things and sell them on the black market, they're going to find a way to do it, right? The state's not going to protect anything. You really want to protect wildlife, you really want to protect the ocean, make it private, privatize it, privatize the ocean, privatize all land, right? So yeah, that's my rant.
Sure. I mean, and to bring this up, one of the best things for preserving elephants and rhinoceros, these very valuable animals. People, poachers hunt them for ivory, but one of the best things for the conservation of those animals is private hunting reserves, where you can pay $15,000 to go shoot Cecil the lion or whatever it is.
Yeah.
A lot of people get outraged by that because, this is an endangered species. Why would you do that? But the thing is if you can find a way to make money off breeding these animals and keeping them alive,
exactly,
it's going to happen, right?
Exactly.
So what you see in those state-run preserves, poachers get through that pretty easily, but the private reserves, who they get these rich people to come in and hunt these animals for big dollars. They can spend that on security and keeping those poachers out. So and this is from what I've done, from the research I have seen, like that this has been the most successful way of preserving these endangered animals, especially in Africa.
That's a great great thing to bring up. That's true. When you privatize something, the person who owns that land or those animals have a vested interest in making sure there's a future. Why would they privatize something just to destroy it? Like, very few people would do that. Maybe some people would want to make a garbage dump, have a private garbage dump. But most people, when they have private property, they want to take care of it and tend to it so that they have a future. A future income, future cash flow. Right? You don't want to run your private property into the ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
So definitely private poaching, private animal husbandry, farming is not immoral. And oh yeah, by the way, I just want to mention Jerry One, or Jared Howe, as he's known on Facebook, is a very vocal vegan, and he accepts that idea that killing animals is not murder, right? But he is also a vegan, right? So he understands that. So you can be a vegan on other grounds other than the idea that killing animals is murder. You can just say, well, I think it's healthier to eat more plants. Okay, that's fine. It's your choice. We all have our choice how we want to live our lives, right? So.
Yeah, I don't know how much time do we have here. Do we want to stop anytime soon?
Yeah. We're almost done.
I'd like to say one more thing about vegans.
Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm very harsh on vegans and animal rights activists, and part of it is, right, I have this emotional attachment to eating meat and preserving that tradition because that's how I make my money. But I genuinely respect people who take their ethics seriously and take their principles seriously, and especially people who, if you believe meat is murder and you decide I'm not going to eat meat anymore, I respect that in a lot of ways. I don't think that it's very wise, and I don't agree with that decision, but it's your choice. And if you're willing to do that to yourself, that's great. And that you consider ethics that highly, I'm going to have more respect for that person for sure. But like the main beef I have is with, it's not all vegans, right?
Main beef.
Main beef, yeah.
I like that.
So, my main issue is kind of the similar thing I have with feminism, is that I don't like the very vocal people who are so aggressive towards those who disagree with them. I have a business partner, and actually the way I met him, he's Tyler Boggs of Heart to Heart Farms. He had a run-in with an animal rights activist group online, and they're very mean. Going so far as making death threats and actually studying the layout of their farm, and then sending him details on how we will come and invade you, from what I understood. Maybe
seriously?
I probably should stop there, because I haven't read the transcripts of any of this stuff, and I don't know if this is how far it went, but that's the way he made it sound. And I have an episode on my podcast. It's 30 or 40 something, I don't know. But from my experience and just watching these people interact with people, I really disagree with the methods, right? Because I'm very invested in animal welfare, right? I'm a small farmer. I'm very opposed to factory farming and the treatment that a lot of livestock are given, right? I don't think that it's I think it's very cruel. I don't think that you should be raising pigs in a situation where they're getting sick all the time, so you have to pump them full of antibiotics, and they're eating each other's ears and tails because they're so crowded.
Right.
And pumping them full of all these stuff that's not good for them. I think that's really disgusting. And so I definitely agree with where a lot of these people are coming from, where a lot of vegans are coming from. There's genuine concerns and issues that are happening. My main issue is that I feel like I get attacked because I'm not going all the way, right? I feel like and this isn't most vegans, I don't think, right? This is just most of the people I interact with, it seems. This isn't what they're all doing, and I think a lot of people get this, is we should be supporting small agriculture because of the benefit that it does for animals. Yes, we're harvesting them eventually, but it's the best life that they can have, including in being in nature. These pigs have like the least stressful life in the world. Like, their life is way better than mine. That's very short. But they get to be free to an extent. So that would be my main issue, is that I get the idea with at least most of it, right? And I'm working towards most of the same goals. I just don't take it as far as they do, and you can call me a minarchist for that. But that's just my position. Is I've just found that it's I genuinely respect that, and I'm going to be mean to vegans because I think it's fun, and I just love making pissing people off. But I get where they're coming from. I think there are very valuable concerns that they raise, and I think that it's an interesting discussion, and I'm very open to talking about it with them. And personally, I have a disagreement in the philosophy, and if somebody would like to try me on that sometime, I welcome you to contact me, and I will explain to you why I think that the fundamentals of animal rights activism and veganism from an ethical perspective are not sound in their philosophy. So with that, that's all I have.
Yeah. You just reminded me of something, an analogy, which is, it seems to me that when a lot of people, when we talk about private enterprise, privatizing things and how much more superior that is to state-run institutions, so they equate. Some of them, when, like, let's say communists, let's say they hate business, right? Because it seems like they look at Monsanto, DuPont, and Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Halliburton. They look at all these things, all these huge corporations with massive political ties and lobbyists and bribery and corruption and all that, and then they look at the small little food truck or mom and pop shop, and they're like, business is evil. Doesn't matter how big it is, And I draw the analogy with you and the factory farms, which again are massive, like Tyson and Purdue, those kinds of big factory farm corporations, and the political connections, the political lobbies, all the bribery and corruption that goes on, the revolving door with the CEOs and all that, and then they say you're the same as that. They equate you with that, and it's amazing.
Yeah. Vastly different.
Yeah, they can't draw a distinction. It's pretty amazing. So I just kind of realized that. So it's it's a big difference. Very important to draw a distinction there. So do you want to do a quick thing about abortion as murder, or do you want to call it?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go for it. This is not a topic I typically touch on because honestly, I don't really know whether abortion is murder or not. It's a complicated argument, and I'm not sure exactly where I stand on it. I kind of take the position of I don't really have to ever make that decision, right, to abort somebody.
Exactly.
If I'm stupid enough to impregnate a woman, or I guess if there's a possibility that I could be raped or something, and this and somebody has my child and against my consent, I would like to think that I would take the position that no, I will help raise this child. In either way, if somebody rapes me, I'm gonna be least likely. That's a different situation, but I'm not sure exactly what I'd do there. But I think that it generally, in any case, that it would be most likely. I would like to take the responsibility, and if the woman disagrees with me and says no, I don't want to do this, I would respect that decision. You can call me a cold, heartless baby killer, I guess. But I mean, that's just, I guess, that I don't know, so I'm not willing to take an ethical action, except if if I do something, I think it's my responsibility to live up to that, and it's just not. I just don't see a case where it is really my decision.
Yeah, it's interesting. So similar to the animal rights thing, I don't see it as a priority for me, which is why I don't talk about it at all on my channel and my videos. I just don't think that it's necessary, and there's more pressing issues to discuss that we should tend to. And also, so I think again it goes back to children and whether the pregnancy was how do you say, intentional, right? It's acquired obligation, right? The woman gets pregnant, and really, I guess I could see the case where it's her body, it's her property, she can choose to do what she wants. There's that case, and that's interesting. And then there's another case where I see, which is, all of us are alive because our parents did not abort us, right? So we are all grateful to be alive. So therefore, it is incumbent on us, or I guess on women, to give that same gift of life to the next generation. And so for somebody to actively support abortion, I don't know if people actually support abortion, but I mean, I wouldn't say it's a crime. Abortion is a crime. It's definitely not murder. But yeah, that's all I would say is that if you're if you're living and you appreciate your life, which most people do, then I think it's only how you say, charitable and generous to extend that same sort of life, that same life, gift of life, to the next generation, to your children, and I think having babies is a wonderful thing. I mean, I guess you could also say, well, there's so many children that are without parents, and why are you going to just add another one to it? And yeah, I guess you could, and then you just adopt. But some people don't want to adopt, so you have your own kid. So to each his own. I mean,
yeah.
So that's my position: is that life is a beautiful thing, and spread it.
Sure.
So that's my thing. All right. So So why don't you say any last remarks you have, and then where people can contact you if they want to follow more of your work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a pleasure to be on the Peaceful Anarchism show again, and this will, of course, be featured on Anarcho-Capitalism as well. if you'd like to contact me, you can go to my website, an-yak.com, an-yak.com. Make sure you put the dash in there. Otherwise, you will get to a Russian models website, Facebook page.
Really?
Or maybe don't. Maybe
Nice.
just throw out the – it might be interesting. She's pretty. I don't think there's any nudity. But
you got competition. All right.
I know. I was really upset when I found that an-yak.com was taken by this Russian model named Anyak or something. I don't know. But anyway, and-yak.com. You can find my contact information there. You can email me. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram and Snapchat. I don't want to list all those. If you would really like to follow me on any of those and you can't find me, then just send me a message on Facebook. And if you add me on Facebook, please let me know. Like, introduce yourself, because I have so many people that add me, and I always wonder who are you? Are you like, how do you know me? So please do that. But yeah, and if you'd like to talk about anything, generally I'm pretty busy, so I don't like to do much online. But if you'd like to come on Skype and do a show with me or something, then typically I'm very willing, and I'm willing to test out my ideas. So yeah, find me, listen to my show, and thanks for having me on again.
Yeah, no problem. So if a Russian model with the name Anyak adds you with no mutual friends on Facebook, you're gonna not accept, right?
Well, it depends on what she looks like.
Depends. Do you really like yaks?
She might be a fed.
Right. So I don't know. Maybe all right. We'll do this again. I don't know. What's your favorite quote? I know I asked you this last time. But
sure.
I do this with everybody every time, so I'm not gonna spare you, of course. So maybe your favorite quote changed from last time. I don't know.
It probably has. I don't remember what my favorite quote was last time, and now I think about it. I was thinking about one recently that I really liked, but I think I'm forgetting it. So I would just throw out, I really like the Viktor Frankl quote. And this is probably the quote I hear most of the time because I listen to a lot of the School Sucks podcast, and their main quote is, what is it? There's a space in between, and probably butchering this, there's a space in between stimulus and response, and that is free will. So I like that quote because I like the idea of widening that space, and that's kind of what Brett Veinotte kind of pushes on his show, is widening the space, and I really like that. So that would be my favorite one by
Beautiful.
Viktor, whatever his name is.
Viktor Frankl, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Nick, for a wonderful conversation. Really interesting talking about these topics that I don't usually discuss these topics. So yeah, really awesome. So yeah, if you want to follow me, or you want to donate to me, you can do so on Bitcoin, PayPal, or Patreon. That's patreon.com/Peaceful Anarchism to follow me. $1 a show is all I ask. These are free. I do these for free, but as we know in economics, there's opportunity cost to everything we do. Nothing is actually free, right? So if I'm not doing this, if I'm doing this, I'm not doing something else. So yeah, if you find value, please trade value for value, and send some love my way, either Bitcoin or PayPal or Patreon. Anything is appreciated. If you want to mail gold and silver, be my guest. So or you can also click on the Amazon affiliate links on my website and make your purchases there through those links, and I will get a commission at no extra cost to you. So it helped me doing what I do best, which is interviewing fascinating people like Nick here. And I want to do more of it. So monetary compensation is always appreciated and encouraged. So yeah, Nick, thanks a lot for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. So this is Peaceful Anarchism on the Voluntary Virtues Network and theseedsofliberty.com and theconsciousresistance.com. Wishing everyone have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this content and would like to see more of it, please feel free to donate and help me interview other fascinating people. You can do so through Patreon. That's patreon.com/Peaceful Anarchism to help me out. $1 a show is all I ask. If you feel so inclined to donate more, please feel free. It will only assist me in spreading the message of freedom and voluntarism that much farther and that much more efficiently. You can also donate to my Bitcoin. My Bitcoin address is in the description to my videos, as well as on my website, peacefulanarchism.com. And while you're on my site, there's a donate button to donate through PayPal. If you prefer to donate through PayPal, you can do so with that. But Patreon is a little bit easier for content creators, as you can set up a recurring donation if you so desire. Also, while you're on my website, peacefulanarchism.com, please feel free to sign up, enter your email address, sign up for my newsletter, and you'll receive updates every time I post something, a video or an interview. I do not send out any spam. Or you can also follow me on Facebook under facebook.com/peacefulanarchism or facebook.com/Danilo Cuellar 3, I believe. Danilo Cuellar 3. So either one of those methods, if you are able to donate, I would be most appreciative. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you have a magnificent day.
Cell 411 is a free app for Android and iOS that replaces government-controlled 911. Cell 411 allows you to preset a group of friends or private organizations to show up in any emergency. Cell 411 is a nightmare for the state because it proves their so-called services aren't needed. Cell 411 has had thousands of installs, and of course it's covered by the BIPCOT no government license. Cell 411 because your friends won't shoot you when you're in trouble. Without the government, who would build the emergency services? You and Cell 411. Get it today at getcell411.com. That's getcell411.com.